One man was mauled by a grizzly bear, left for dead, and crawled 200 miles to get his revenge. Another was stripped naked, told to run, and somehow outran an entire war party. These were not fictional characters. These were real men. And this is how they died. These are the mountain men. And every legend has an ending. Hugh Glass. The bear didn't kill him. His own men did. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your life? August 1823. The grass on the South Dakota plains is the color of straw. Hugh Glass scouts ahead of Ashley's fur brigade along the Grand River and stumbles on a grizzly with 2 cubs 10 feet away. She hits him before the smoke clears, claws through his scalp to the bone. Fangs opens his throat. He drives his knife into her ribs until she goes still. Then he goes still too. His men are certain he's already dead. 2 of them, John Fitzgerald and 19-year-old Jim Bridger, stay behind to bury him. Instead, they take his rifle, his knife, his flint, and walk away, still breathing. Glass wakes up alone, 200 miles from the nearest fort. He sets his own broken leg against a fallen cottonwood. For 6 weeks, he crawls, eating berries, wolf-cracked bones, rotting buffalo meat. Maggots eat away the dead flesh in his wounds before it can rot. He survives. He reaches Fort Kiowa. He tracks down Fitzgerald and, rifle recovered, walks away. Glass lives another decade in the wilderness he nearly died in. Then, winter 1833, on the frozen Yellowstone River, an Arikara war party catches him. He's about 50 years old. The ice holds his blood without melting. He survived a grizzly, betrayal, starvation, and a brutal frontier winter. In the end, it was one ordinary moment of bad luck that finally took him. Think about that the next time you feel let down by someone. Jedediah Smith, America's most devout explorer, met the most violent end. Think of the classic mountain man, and you probably don't picture someone who read his Bible every night, refused to swear, and rarely touched a drink. Jedediah Smith was that man, and by his early 30s, he had crossed the Sierra Nevada twice, mapped the Great Basin, and covered more new American territory than almost anyone of his era. He also survived a grizzly attack that tore his scalp and one ear nearly off his skull. He reportedly stayed calm, and a fellow trapper, James Kleiman, stitched the scalp and ear back into place with a needle and thread on the spot. Smith was back on the trail within days. That same year, 1823, in the very same expedition, another man was recovering from his own grizzly encounter along the Grand River, Hugh Glass. 2 of the most famous survival stories in mountain man lore were born from the same brigade, the same season. On May 27, 1831, Smith rode ahead of his wagon train near the Cimarron River in present-day Kansas to scout for water. He was 32 years old. A band of Comanche warriors found him first. His body was never officially recovered. Some of his belongings turned up later, traded among the Comanche, but Jedediah Smith himself vanished into the prairie dust, America's most prolific explorer. No grave, no witness, no final entry in the journal. The funny thing is, the man had survived a scalping, 2 Sierra Nevada crossings in brutal conditions, and years in hostile territory. In today's terms, it would be like the world's greatest explorer dying on a coffee run. No drama, no last stand, just gone. And now we come to the most complicated story of all, a man whom history spent over a century trying to erase, and whose death was just as hard to pin down as his life. Jim Beckworth was born into slavery on a plantation in Virginia. His father is his enslaver. Jim earns his freedom, walks west in his late teens, and does not look back. He traps beaver for the Rocky Mountain Fur Company, then lives with the Crow Nation for nearly a decade. Earns the name Morning Star, leads war parties across the Bighorn Basin, sits in council inside lodges decorated with painted elk-hide murals of battle. In April 1850, he finds a low-elevation pass through the Sierra Nevada, Beckwourth Pass, 5,221 feet, and guides the first wagon train through it himself. As the story is told, he tells a settler, "I am making the road." In 1866, in his mid to late 60s, he rides into Crow territory one final time. Autumn, aspen trees burning gold across the hillsides. He dies there, in the lodge of a Crow chief who had taken him in. The official account points to sudden illness, headaches, nosebleeds, likely a stroke. But rumors of poisoning followed him to the grave. Some blamed lingering distrust after his involvement in an army campaign against the Cheyenne years earlier. Others couldn't believe a man like Beckwourth could die of something so ordinary. Today, Beckwourth Pass still bears his name on California maps. He is still making the road. John Colter runs. That is the only thought that exists. It is October 1808. The cottonwood trees along the Jefferson River have gone yellow. Colter and his partner, John Potts, are checking beaver traps at dawn when a Blackfoot war party, by some tellings, hundreds strong, though the true number was likely exaggerated in the retelling over campfires for decades, steps out of the tree line. The Blackfoot had watched American trappers move deeper into their territory for 3 seasons. This morning, they stopped watching. Potts fires. They kill him within seconds and cut his body apart on the riverbank, while Colter stands with empty hands. They strip Colter naked, take his moccasins, his knife, his rifle. A war leader gives him a head start of a few hundred yards. Then they release the runners. Colter covers nearly 6 miles across a cactus-covered plain, barefoot, the thorns driving into his feet with every stride. One warrior closes in and raises his spear. Colter stops, turns, and grabs the lance with both hands. The man stumbles from exhaustion. Colter drives the spear into the ground. The warrior falls onto it. He slides under a submerged log jam in the Madison River and breathes through a gap in the wood for hours. Blackfoot walk the bank above him, their moccasins visible through the current. Then they leave. He walks roughly 200 miles back to Lisa's fort, without shoes, without food, in about a week and a half. 4 years later, around 1812, John Colter died in Missouri from jaundice, in a bed, in spring. The irony of that quiet room never leaves the men who knew him.